Oh my gosh, it's that time of year again. Healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. Which kind do I get? Who do I buy it from? Which policy? Which company? Do I use the marketplace? Do I not use the marketplace? Do I do independent? Do I do it on my own? Do I go through my employer? Oh my God. The insurance industry. Do I need life insurance? If so, how much? Oh, dental insurance. On and on and on and on. And if you're like me, I'm like losing my mind. And I hate this time of the year because this is the time of the year when you have to decide all these things. So the better thing to do is have an agent, have a broker, have someone on your side who's going to help you through every single step of the way, represent you with all the insurance companies, break it all down, make it simple. Because otherwise you'll just lose your mind and you'll wind up in a policy like I got that my doctor suddenly says, well, I don't take that one. You're like, what? So before you lose your mind, like I am, I want you to meet my special guest today, and he's amazing. Of course, I say that about everybody because I think, we all have our individual uniqueness and we're all fascinating and amazing. So with that said, if you are losing your mind or you want some help with navigating through the whole market of insurance, health, and life, you're not going to want to miss this because this guy, oh my God, I'm going to say it. He's amazing. So stay tuned. Here we go. Let's have some fun. Hi, I'm Honey Gregory, and welcome to my channel, Perpetual Learning, where we are continuously learning because if you're not learning, you're dying. And I don't want to die, and I don't want to die dumb. So I have brought on the most amazing guest today. He is a broker specialist in healthcare and life insurance, but that's what he does as his day job. But he's also a dad, a husband. He reads the Bible. He's a Christian, and he has a lot of scripture. He's amazing with the scripture, and I'm sure there's more to his story than that. We're recent friends, and every time we get together, we just can't stop talking. We need to schedule like a 10-hour chit chat. So I want to welcome you guys to my very special guest. This is Jesse Bullock. Hey, Jesse.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm serious, man. Like you and I could sit for like 10 hours and just keep talking, and we'd be like, oh, give me water.
Right. I completely agree with that sentiment.
Well, you're amazing.
You're smart. And you know a lot about a lot of things,
Well, it's funny because you and I are talking about something. We start finishing each other's sentence because we both are attracted to the same kind of topics and information. And so we're like, yeah, and it's a lot of fun because you and I can actually hold a conversation, which is very rare. I meet very few people that I can hold a conversation with more than about 5 minutes because usually after that, I'm little snoozed, like, okay, I got to go now. But you're a super smart guy and you're super sweet, and your Christian positive energy nature comes through, and you're, what I've learned about you so far is you're really a sweet, good man who tries really hard to do a really great job at what you're doing. And you and I met through the networking group, NTI, which I just adore. And I was so grateful when you came in because I have been dealing with the marketplace by myself for years, and I hate it. And I literally said earlier this year, I prayed out loud, like, Lord, please, I can't take this anymore. I need help.
Right.
And poof, there you were. So why don't you give us some background about yourself and, your personal background, your history, how you came along and how you got into this industry?
Well, how far do you want me to go back? I mean, I can go all the way back. I mean,
well, we don't need to know when you were nappies or something, but no, really, okay. Like as an adult, like what kind of got you into this field and what brought you to where you're at right now?
Well, to be honest with you, I had planned on my life being a lot different than it is today. It's funny, I ended up in health insurance because my mom was a neonatal nurse when I was growing up. And I remember growing up in hospitals, and I would go hang out in the nurses' lounge for hours before school and hours after while I would go, wait for school to start and get off of school. And so I've always kind of been around healthcare and stuff like that.
Nice.
My dad was a mechanic, the exact opposite of things. But
Well,
so
both
I
fix
had,
stuff, right? I mean, fix the
right,
person,
that's
fix the
true.
car.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fixing
yeah.
things, making things better. Yeah, all
Well, and
good.
at the end of the day, those aren't jobs that are likely to go away anytime soon. So,
No, right? You
right.
definitely need mechanics and good health care.
Well, and the funny thing is my dad is the salesman, but my mom is the fixer. So, they're both very loquacious. And so I grew up in a house full of talking and listening. And well, actually, probably not as much listening, more talking than anything. But But the great thing is I got to see from a very young age how health insurance impacts the world and how healthcare impacts the world. And then, of course, I grew up and I had aspirations to become a doctor, believe it or not. And
Wow.
and then I decided to make some decisions in my life that I ended up having a child when I was 17.
Yes.
And so then instead of finishing school, because I was working and trying to take care of the family and it just was too much, so I dropped out of school.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, it was kind of stupid. I had one of my baseball coach, like, he was in my face like, what are you doing? You're so stupid, you're so smart, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I look back now and may have been, may not have been, but God had me on this journey for a reason. And so then I ended up dropping out of school, kind of ruining my life for a while. I
Mm.
got into some drugs and some drinking, and I was in a very abusive relationship with a woman that had been heavily abused. I didn't know
Mm.
that beforehand, but the mother of my
Mm.
child, should I say. I
Yeah.
married her, and then after a year we got divorced. And then God had different plans for me, and I had always I fell into restaurant work
Mm.
as a young man. And then it just they were like, hey, come on, you're good, we'll promote you, and before long I was married again, and I was working in restaurants, and I was a district manager for Taco Bell for years,
Wow.
things like
That's good
that.
experience.
Yeah, so I like to tell people I probably interviewed about 10,000 people in my career.
I'm not surprised.
So so
Yeah.
I've gotten to meet people from all different backgrounds, all walks of life. And then in the restaurant industry, it's actually really good for keeping an open mind
Yeah.
if you're willing to. Anyway, so I was tired of that, and I had to get out and make a change. And I helped my dad with a family business in Northern California. We owned our own restaurant, and then that fell apart. And I decided I needed to make a change, and I was going to go back to Portland, Oregon, when I'm born and raised. And the house I grew up in, that was $30,000 when my parents bought it in 76 or 7, was going to be like
Oh my
$560,000.
gosh.
No
Holy
yard,
cow.
urban sprawl everywhere. And so I was like, I can't afford
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And so my wife's actually from Indiana. And so I made the switch, and I came out here, and I decided I wasn't going to do restaurants, but I was going to be involved in restaurants. And I became a salesperson for Cisco Foods for a while.
Oh.
And that's what got me into sales. And then they just weren't paying like they needed to. And I felt like my talent was being wasted. I was
Mhm.
actually working a second job in a restaurant as a bartender and a server.
Wow.
Made more money doing that, by the way,
Oh
at
yeah, I've
night.
worked in the bar business before, and
Yeah,
I've been a cocktail waitress and a
yeah,
hostess and all those things
yeah,
in the day. And yeah,
yeah,
that's where the money is. There's no doubt.
yep.
But those are some
And
sucky hours.
And so I was working, 40 hours a week or
Yeah.
more at that, and then another 40 hours in the restaurant. And I just said
Mm.
something's got to give. So I actually became the general manager for for the Terre Haute Buffalo Wild Wings for a while.
Oh, okay.
But thankfully, I'd been in corporate America long enough to see the writing on the walls. And this
Yeah.
guy contacted me through LinkedIn because I was looking for work. And he messaged me about life insurance. I didn't know that was what it was at first. And he actually got me involved with life insurance. I took my life and health insurance licensing test, and I branched off and started doing it part-time while I was working at Buffalo. And then I left and went to this full time. And the funny thing is, probably a month into it, I realized I was working just as hard as I was at the
Mm.
restaurant. And it was tough. I was buying all my leads, and it was really crazy.
Mm.
And everyone I talked to in the restaurants that I had built relationships with, I thought, I'll just go sell them life insurance. This is going to be an easy gig.
Yeah.
But everyone I talked to said, I got life insurance coming out of my ears. I don't
Oh.
need any of that, but I can't find good health insurance. And then about that
Yep.
time, my health insurance was over, and I had really good coverage with this major corporation. But then I went to fill my wife's prescriptions, and what was normally 5 prescriptions for $25 a month was going to be $565.
Oh my gosh. That's
And
insane.
I about wet my pants. I was
Yeah.
like, oh my. So I happened to be in the drive-through. I came around and I was in line and I saw this thing for GoodRx and I found out about GoodRx. And then I was talking to another buddy of mine about life insurance. And then I asked him, he's happened to be a farmer. He said, I said, hey, what do you do for health insurance? And he said, oh, I go through this supplement company called Kemper Health at the time. And now they bought us and now it's MedMutual, which is my main thing most of the time. And I met the manager there, and in any rule of thumb for me when it comes to leadership and where you work, it's you never leave your job, you always quit your boss. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with this guy. I fell in love with his attitude, and then on top of it, I made less money, but he was going to buy the leads. He was going to do hands-on training with me. He was going to help me run the leads and make the sales. And I thought, man, this is fantastic.
So you gave
So
up
I did that.
a salary, a portion of your
Yeah, I was making
salary.
about $75,000 a year.
Yeah. And but you traded it for mentorship and business and networking and contacts. And I'm sure it paid off in the long run.
You know what? I'll be honest with you. The second I did it, COVID hit.
Oh no.
And so, believe it or not, it actually, in a funny way, it helped because at this point, thankfully, I'd gotten my wife disabled 100% with the military. So we were, cash flow wasn't as big a concern at the time. That's part of the reason why I was able to leverage my time that way. It just so worked out that I could do this slowly. And since everybody was on freeze mode from COVID, it was really hard to sell. But I got a lot of good practice. And then I also met a lot of really wonderful people. And then I started to build relationships. And I realized over time that just having a lead wasn't going to do it, but building relationships and making connections and letting people hear my story and understand that I was more than just a guy that sold health insurance. And then, of course, I learned, there's a few people that everybody hates, right? Lawyers are one of them, right?
I know, watch out there. We're not all sharks.
And then insurance agents,
yeah, there's quite a few pompous, arrogant, rude attorneys out there. I hate to say it, but
I've since made friends with great attorneys like you, and I've got another friend out here that I consider some of the best people. I would give them the shirt off my back, and I would hand you the keys to my car because I know you'd hand it back the way I had it to you. So of course we all know that that's all just it's all made up blur, and unfortunately there's a pain point there from people. So the nice thing is that my heart, at the end of the day, I grew up in church. I grew up as a coach. I grew up playing basketball. I grew up, but believe it or not, in the Black community. So for me, I guess the word I'm looking for is community is everything. And so I'm very community oriented. And so my sales approach now is about help people all the time. And eventually I'll be able to sell something. But it's more about teaching and equipping, because at the end of the day, of all the things I've done in my life, health insurance is one of the most difficult to understand and one of the most difficult for small business owners to navigate. And I love it because of that. And so I feel like in a way I am a doctor because I get to help so much. And
to make good money in any business, relationships is key, and solving problems is key. So those are the two main things. So the bigger the problem, the bigger, reward. And in order to find people with problems, you got to network. That's just part of it. So that's right. And that's how you and I met. And I was so glad to have you on board with me, and you and I are going to do some more talking, I'm sure, here in the future. But so there's so much about insurance, right? And, there's the marketplace, and then there's private, and there's Medicare and Medicaid and government and employer and private. And oh my gosh, I just don't even know. So please explain these things to us.
Well, if you're okay with it, can I share my screen?
Oh, you got a screen? All right, let me see. Do I have to click on something? This is new for me.
You may have to. I think
I have to.
Really let me pull this
multiple
up.
Participants can share. One participant. I think I have to click on this one. All right. So it's a learning experience, continuously learning.
And then I need to find my form here really quickly. Where is it?
Did it work?
Actually, I got to pull this up first and then I'm going to share my screen. Okay.
Because this says
There we
multiple
go.
participants. So I think you're good.
Yeah. So I think I can share my screen. There we go. It should let me do it. All right. Awesome. So,
Okay.
for what it's worth in the health insurance world
Mm-hmm.
here in Indiana, specifically because those are the clients that we typically run into the most close to home. I also sell outside of the state, but that's not what we're about
Yeah, I saw
today.
you were licensed in a lot of different states. So I
Yeah.
will put those states in the description so that if anyone is watching the video that's in those areas, they know they can contact you.
Yeah. The reason why I got licensed outside of the state was because I live in Terre Haute area, and it's literally minutes to Illinois. So a lot of people on this part of the country do, Indiana and Illinois. And then I thought, well, if I was going to do that, I might as well do Kentucky and Ohio and Michigan. So that's kind of how it started for me. But then over necessity from clients moving or relatives going, hey, Jesse, can you help me? I ended up picking up other states.
Awesome. Before long, you have all 50. Way to go.
Well, yeah, we'll see about that.
You can do it. I believe
Well, I have to tell you, I wasn't ever going to get California, but that's where my dad and some of my family still live. And so I went ahead and did it. And then I was like, well, I might as well get Oregon, Washington too, because that's where I'm born and raised.
There you go.
But so in Indiana, if you can see my screen here,
I see it.
we've got the private health insurance options. And so basically you have the Affordable Care Act or the marketplace plans, which you are currently dealing with right now, honey. And then you've got supplemental insurance. You've got short-term plans, which by the way, those just changed by law. You can only keep them now for I think it's 90 days. I don't remember when it takes effect. I think it's January 1st.
Okay.
But that's changing. And then we've got sharing plans, and I put in there, not all of them are the same. And I actually navigate all of this, or I wouldn't put it on there. Group insurance, PPO plans, nationwide coverage. You got to have at least 2 employees or more. There's also this really cool stuff called level funding that's new in the small business market, which has never been there before. And then private individual family plans. So you can just get a PPO network, kind of like with the group insurance. And then, of course, anybody that happens to be over 65 or disabled can get Medicare. And then you have Medicaid. And of course, that's for all ages.
Okay.
And the interesting thing is by working with the marketplace, I'm actually a marketplace adjuster and navigator. I get to see who qualifies for Medicaid based on their income and their family size. And so I actually help people navigate to Medicaid through that, or I actually have I call her a colleague, which is actually just a referral that I ran into. We were doing a drug abuse awareness thing together, and she happened to pop into my life, and she's been one of the biggest assets to me with Medicaid because she makes enrollment super easy.
Nice.
And she is very comfortable to talk with and deal with. And so you don't have a bunch of, okay, who am I talking to?
Now, is that Holly?
Holly. That's Holly. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, she and I have been playing phone tag. I gotta get a hold of her. Okay.
She's probably dealing with her kids right now, but yeah, she's really, really good. And then of course I always try and give free advice because I feel like, there's an old saying, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? It's biblical, and also it's just it's a smart way to live, right? And so some of the free advice I give to people is to go to GoodRx, even if you have insurance, because a lot of times, like I found, it could save you a bunch of money. I never finished telling that story, by the way. I found out GoodRx, and I was at CVS when this happened, and I saw on the GoodRx app for free, if I move my wife's prescriptions over to Meyer here in town, it was going to be $265. I said, well, that's a lot better.
Yeah, it's
and
improvement.
then it said something about gold plan on there. And if I paid $6.99 at the time for her to go on this plan, she would get it for much less. So by the time I moved it there and paid for the gold plan and got her set up that same day, believe it or not, it was only $55 out of pocket.
Get out. That's fantastic.
10%. And then the great thing was, is I found out about the Kroger savings plan, which, is another way to go on some of this stuff, depending on where you live and what your medicines are. And I ended up paying $45 every 90 days for those same prescriptions. So a lot of this has been just my own blood, sweat, and tears learning.
Yeah.
And then some of this I've picked up along the way through my colleagues or my manager and things like that. So like you can go and find lab testing and blood work on GoodRx for
I need to check that out.
Medical savings on mdsave.com, stuff like that. So
yeah, I need to check that out. Does it What about dental stuff? Is dental stuff
I
on
also
there?
cover dental and vision on
Okay.
there.
Okay.
That's another coverage that I do.
Okay.
So yeah, we could definitely talk about that. I'll stop
Yeah.
sharing my
Oh,
screen so
well,
we can come
yeah,
back
that
and
was great. I loved it. Awesome. Very nice.
yeah,
Wow. Yeah. And see, each one of those, a normal person like myself would just, they know they need something, but they don't have a clue what they need. And they're frustrated because I know, like, when I call the marketplace and they start telling me, oh, well, you can have this one or this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And an hour later, 2 hours later, I'm looking at my notes and I'm like, girl, I don't even know. I'll just say, oh, bronze, gold, silver, whatever. Just do
right,
something, because
right,
I'm done. I'm tired. I don't care at this point.
right.
Um, and it all meshes together, and there's nothing like that lays them out where you can compare and contrast them.
Yeah,
And
well,
then
let
you
me
get it, and then you get it. You think you did something great, and then you call your doctor like I did, and they go, oh, well, I take Anthem, but not that Anthem. You need to change Anthems. I'm like, you told me to get Anthem. I got Anthem. I got the best
Right,
Anthem, and now you
right.
tell me you can't get, and it's just, you just really want to rip your hair out, and to have
Yeah,
someone like yourself that they do this day in and day out, and they understand all the twists and turns and details. And if you don't, you know how to dig and find and
yeah,
do it and when you learn it, you help all your customers. When a person like myself spends 5 hours a week trying to learn how to get health and care, it takes away from their family, it takes away from their employment, it takes away from all the other, responsibilities you have. And it gets very upsetting to waste that
yeah,
much time. And then you're still confused and don't know if you did the right thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're okay with it, I want to share my screen a little bit more.
Okay.
What I wanted to talk to you about was currently, and I'll preface this a little bit. I just did this with one of our other NTI members. I won't mention her name, but
That's okay.
uh, it was really a fun time of learning about her and her circumstances. And that's the thing I have people all the time. By the way, everything I do is free because it's a service
Mm-hmm.
first, and
Mm-hmm.
then I don't charge a thing. And if I actually make any money, it's paid for by the people that you decide to sign up with. So there's
Wonderful.
no out of pocket for the people that I work with. But what I like to do is teach first.
Okay.
The one thing I learned early on was that we could be the most intelligent people, the most educated people, but not very smart.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I thought I knew all this stuff, and I actually had to file for medical bankruptcy when I was a younger guy because I didn't know this stuff.
Yeah.
And even when I was at work, I just whatever's the cheapest plan, that's all I can afford, I'd get it.
Yeah.
And then I'd use it like it was the most expensive plan, and I had no idea why I kept getting all these bills,
Yeah.
you know. And so that is my heart too, is trying to help people identify where the weak points are and how they can stay away from the pitfalls. And like, for
Mm.
instance, one of the teachings I do when I talk about insurance is that most of us actually don't understand our democracy very well. It's actually supposed to be a constitutional republic. And so when you think of a republic, you think of it's a little better to understand what I'm about to explain, because like in Indiana, it's supposed to be its own country unto itself, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And we're one republic with multiple states or countries that have a federal heading that helps to oversee things over outside and abroad and to protect the greater interest of all the people within. And
Right.
we all sign one constitution. And then under that, we have different constitutional bylaws and things in each state. So like
Mm-hmm.
Indiana has their own constitution. They have their own Senate. They have their own president, if you will. We call him the governor, and they represent us to the
Mm-hmm.
greater federal government. And then we have senators that go out of our state, and yeah, all that stuff.
Right.
So if you don't understand that, it's harder to understand insurance, because a lot of people get frustrated when they go, well, my plan should be taken in Illinois, right? I'm right here next to it. But because
Yeah.
we're actually a separate state, and
Mm-hmm.
the way it was designed was to work in that state,
Right.
that's why it doesn't always work so well outside of the state, or maybe in some cases not at all.
Yeah.
So first of all, I have to understand that. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, because I think here in the United States, we're so accustomed to being able to just hop in our car and go anywhere we want, call whoever we want, anywhere we want, travel to wherever we want, that we just
Yeah.
assume that everything just goes with us. But I learned the hard way when my daughter got sick when we were in Kentucky, and I had to take her to the emergency room. Then I got like this $1,000 bill, and I was like, what? And they told me they took the
Yeah.
insurance card, and they took it. They said, oh, yeah, we take this. No problem.
Yeah.
And then I
Yeah.
got a big
Yeah.
bill, and I called them. They said, no, we don't take that. And I said, oh, no, no, no. You told me you did, so you're gonna write this off. And it was a battle for about 4 months, but I had to get all lawyer on them, and I didn't like it. But you do what you got to do. But it is very confusing because you do have that kind of mindset, I think, as Americans, that everything goes across borders.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. You're
Yeah.
completely right. And that's the point I was getting to. Most of us don't understand that we have HMO networks.
Mm.
And basically the way that the networks were designed is, let's say that Honey Gregory decides to make her own health insurance plan and she wants to put it out on the market. So you would typically start in the state you live in and you're working in marketing to. So you would send it to every doctor in the state. And then what happens is they take a look at your pay schedule for surgery, for knee replacement, for whatever it is. And they'll say, yeah, I'll accept that. That's fine. And I'll become an in-network doctor. So that means you've negotiated costs down based on certain things. Well, then you have the other doctors that maybe have different viewpoints on things. Maybe they've been in practice for 30 years and they don't need to drive any business their way. And they're like, I don't care about being in your network. I care about my paycheck. Or they are more talented and they know what they're worth. And they're like, I'm not taking a pay cut, so I don't want to join your network. Or they know that the network, they've never heard of it. And they're like, I don't know if I'm even going to get paid. Are you going to be here next year?
Right.
So there's all those things. And so they'll say, no, thanks. So the difference is, let's say Honey calls Jesse and says, hey, will you be in network? And I say, sure. Now I become an in-network doctor. What does that mean? I'm going to take dedicated rates that are going to be less money for you as the supplier of the insurance and then me as the consumer. Well, as the out-of-network doctor says, no thanks, he gets to charge higher rates. And then so that means that the carrier or Honey gets to pay more for the insurance coverage that I use. And then I have to pay more in my portion because we have deductibles. And then of course we have these crazy things you never have in any other insurance, out-of-pocket cost or co-insurance. And that's what everybody gets confused about. They're like, I need a low deductible.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you need a low out-of-pocket. Because if you have $100,000 surgery, you're always going to get to your out-of-pocket.
Yeah.
But if you pay more for a deductible that's lower, you're still going to get to your out-of-pocket. You just take longer to get there.
Yeah.
And now you paid, let's say, $250 extra a month for that plan. Well, times 12, that's what, $6,000?
Yeah.
So, I mean, or well, was that $3,000? So, you want to make sure you understand what it's doing and what it doesn't do. And so if you're okay with it, I'm going to share my screen because HMO is typically in the state you live in. And since Medicaid and the marketplace are only covered in the state of Indiana, with very few exceptions, like if you're incapacitated and you're going to die, they'll stabilize your life. But once you're stable, all those bills go to you. So I'm just going to pull up a plan that I was just looking at today with another person.
So as soon as you get stable, you
on
get
the
someone to throw
marketplace.
you in the car and run you home, huh?
Right. Yeah. Or you can do it through the ambulance ride, which is expensive and they're never in network either.
Yeah. Of course.
So it's $2,000 the average right now for an ambulance ride.
Gosh, it used to be like 500 10, 15 years ago.
You want to hear what it is for an airlift?
I heard it was like 50 grand. Is that right?
The national average is 40,000.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
Well, I guess that's better than dead.
That's true. I'll take the payment plan, but wow, yeah,
I'll bankrupt myself for that if I'm alive.
Yeah, yeah. Now, but if you're incapacitated and they don't know, they're not going to charge you for any of that.
Yeah.
But once you're stabilized, then yeah, you got to get out of that place. So what we're looking at here is a plan from the marketplace.
Okay.
And if you look up above here where it says coverage period, it's from January to December. But what I wanted to show you was the plan type is HMO. And they're all either HMO, EPO, or POS. And in the great state of Indiana, that means on the marketplace, you're not going to have any coverage when you go out of network. And I'll show you right here. Here's their drugs for where they start first, like primary care physician. Now, this is based on if you've already made co-payment and co-insurance on this charter after deductible has been met. Now, this plan has a $3,500 deductible. So you're assuming you've already paid $3,500. Now your primary care visit is free to treat an injury or an illness until you talk about co-insurance. So you have a $25 visit, deductible does not apply, and it should be done. Specialist $60 visit, deductible does not apply, so you should be done. But then if you look down at some of these other costs, let's say we go to facilities, like you have an ambulatory surgical center, here's your $3,500, and then it's 25% co-insurance. Now this plan happens to be $7,200 out of pocket. So that means you're going to pay, so 3,500 minus the 7,200 means you still have another $3,700 to pay out of pocket before it pays everything from that point on. But if you'll notice,
Oh my goodness,
where it says non-network provider, and by the way, this is Anthem, non-network provider, not covered, not covered. Now, the only difference is if you have an emergency, see, it's covered as in network, but only in extreme emergencies. And then your copay is waived if you're admitted into the hospital. And then emergency medical coverage, that's fine. These are the only 3 spots on this whole list that say that they're covered. Everything else is not covered. And so most people go and, you know, they go to Kentucky, they have a sniffles or whatever, and they're like, I'm just going to go see a doctor. And they typically do what you do. Hey, do you guys take Anthem? Yeah, we take Anthem because Anthem is known nationwide.
Yeah.
And they go, sure. And then they go, what about Marketplace? Oh, no, we don't take that. But you've already gone in, you've already gotten the work done.
See, I didn't know that there was like a difference because I thought, oh, it's an Anthem, it's a plan. You're either getting it through the Marketplace because you're getting credits, or you're buying it as a private person, or your employer's buying it for you. I didn't know that there was different plans for each and different situation. And to me, it was like, oh, I got an Anthem plan. I've got, you know, level A, B, C, or D, or whatever it is. But I didn't realize that when I bought it through the Marketplace, that somehow it wasn't the same as if I had bought it through a private broker.
And that's the problem with the Marketplace is it's got a definite spot because first of all, you cannot be denied for your previous health. So if you are in cancer treatment, if you just had a heart attack, there's no reason they can deny you. Now, private insurance doesn't have those limitations. So that is the benefit of the Marketplace, because I can put anybody on the Marketplace. But now the problem becomes, and I'll have you finish this statement. When we grew up, what did we hear? No means?
I don't know.
No means?
I don't know.
No, right? No means
no. No
right?
means no. Okay.
Yeah, no means no. And so, like, when we grew up, we were taught, don't backtalk the police officer. Don't question the doctor. He's the expert. You know, all these things. Well, now we have to learn, well, I don't know about that, doc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're going to send you down the road to the guy they always send everybody to, but they might not be in your network.
Yeah. And they're also,
and now you have to pay that out of pocket.
And they're very eager to make money. And you may have something that I was learning earlier when I interviewed Lori with Young Living. It might be something that, you know, there may be some natural way of getting rid of that problem, but they're ready to chop you up. cut.
It's the medical field, and I hate to say it, but what do we say doctors are? They're practicing.
They're practicing. Yes, they're guessing at it.
Until
they're just
they
trying
retire.
Stuff.
Until they retire, they're always practicing.
Well, and they say about lawyers too. We're practicing.
Well,
law,
yeah.
But yeah.
Well,
and you know, because every case is different. Doesn't matter if you're a doctor or a lawyer and you're just trying to figure out what am I going to do right now in this situation. But, you know, you're looking at the symptoms and how can I do something? And it doesn't matter if you're a lawyer or a doctor, you're just looking at what's the symptom. Because like I can't go back and fix a marriage. A doctor is in his head going, I can't go back and fix, you know, whatever it is. And they're just looking at the symptom.
Your body. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, but yeah, there's so many alternative ways.
I mean, and there's great doctors out there. I'm not saying anything bad about
no,
that.
No. Like, I know that.
To be honest with you, I was with Buffalo Wild Wings for a long time. And do you know who one of the biggest takeout purchasers was for lunch?
Who?
Pharmaceutical reps.
Oh, well, they're always out and about running. They're running. They're going. They're going all day.
Why did they do that? Why did they do that? So they could take it to the offices where the doctors were and make their employees happy so that they could get more business. And guess where the doctors, when they get out of school, who did they learn about the new drugs from? Pharmaceutical reps.
Pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, and they get the kickbacks and all that jazz.
And
a lot of free samples.
Well, that's the other thing. Pharmaceutical reps have one of the highest turnovers out of all salespeople.
It's a lot of hard work. I've known people have done it. Yeah, it's running constantly in your car and smoozing all day.
I've been doing this for 4 years, and I'm still learning and growing. And can you imagine the guy that's been out of training for 2 months that's going in to advise a doctor on how he should treat his patients?
Yeah.
And so that is the pharmaceutical world. That's the
Mhm.
medical field that we're built, and it's all
Mhm.
designed to follow structure,
Okay.
HMO, in and out of network,
Right.
pharmaceutical lists, and then you have different tiers for the drugs, tier
Mm.
1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and how does it pay? And
Yeah.
by the way, like some of these drugs aren't even covered if they're too new. Like they don't want to touch them. Like Monjaro is one that comes to mind. It's a drug that's used for diabetes, but it's also used for weight loss.
Wow.
And so they're trying not to cover that because it's $1,000 a month.
Oh my gosh.
And
Okay,
they
so
don't
we
want to
got
pay
5
that.
minutes. 5
Yeah.
more minutes.
Yep.
What else do you want to talk about?
So basically what I wanted to talk about was how I help people.
Okay.
You've seen all the different options out there, and I'll
Mhm.
stop sharing my screen because we've seen kind of some of the stuff that's out there. But my goal is to bring hope to everyone that I talk to
Mm.
and try and bring peace about health insurance by being a teacher and taking the time. I just spent an hour and a half on the phone, or actually over a Zoom, believe it or not, with a potential client. I didn't make a sale. I
Mhm.
sent them with homework to do because I didn't
Mm.
have all the answers. And one
Mhm.
of the biggest problems I run into is everybody goes, because they're afraid that I'm a slippery salesperson and they just want to know the bottom line, right?
Mm.
What's your total? And so like, can you send me some prices? Can you send me your rates? And I'm like, I can't. I need
Yeah.
to know how old you are. I need to know what sex you are. I need to know what medicines you're taking. I need
Yeah.
to know all this information before I can actually give you an accurate assessment.
Mhm.
And by the way, if you have a bunch of pre-existing conditions, there's no way I can put you in certain places.
Mm.
But if you're super healthy and you don't have a lot of drugs that you're taking, I don't necessarily need to send you to the marketplace, especially if you're making more money and you don't get a subsidy. I
Yeah.
can take you to freestanding insurance. I can take you to those sharing plans. I can
Mm.
take you to supplemental insurance. And there's just a lot of ways that I can help. And that's the other thing. I talk to people that are like, oh, I travel to Florida every 2 months. And
Yep.
I'm like, well, you don't want to be on the marketplace then because
Mm.
you're not covered in Florida, you
Okay.
know?
That's good to
And
know.
so
So when you're on vacation, you're kind of, oh
it's not
my
cookie
dear.
cutter, but then I sell stuff to go with the marketplace, like supplemental insurance accident coverage that'll cover
Mm.
you no matter where you go, in or out of the state,
Wow.
at the same rate, because we don't care. We just pay what your needs are. Or then
Mhm.
there's sharing plans. They don't care what state you're in either. They're just going to pay based on whether you take the cash value or not, and whether your pre-existing conditions limit from paying for the first year or whatever the plan may be. And
So,
so I look at all that.
right. So 3 minutes, anything you want. Oh, so give me like 3 or 4 tips
Yeah.
for someone quickly that's trying to navigate through the health insurance. I'm assuming one, call you.
So www.jessebullock.com is my website. My
Awesome. And I'll
phone
put
number is
more.
812-552-6878. That's the first suggestion. The second thing is
Okay.
Google is very good. So start using Google as a tool to find lower cost treatments, like the information I put up there, mdsave.com. Anybody can check that out anytime. I just saved a gal probably $3,000 on a CAT scan by using that. I also just saved someone another couple of $1,000s to get their blood work done by going to someplace local that has a membership fee of $125. And then basically every blood panel they'll run is $90.
Oh, wow. That's good. Yeah.
So
It's
it's
amazing.
all that stuff. And so it's just about not pushing back. It's about pushing back.
Yeah.
Don't just go with what the doctor says. Know where your coverage lies, and then say, I got to check and see if they're in my network.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, there's this crazy guy named Jesse who doesn't have any hair that sells health insurance, and he loves what he does, and maybe I'll
Yeah.
check him out,
Yeah. And I like the fact that, because as you tell people, like, oh, these are the things you're going to do, they're already going, what?
Their
They're
mind is
zoning
melting.
out. Yeah.
There's
They're
so
already
much.
just glazed over. And so I'm telling you, save yourself, save yourself and call Jesse.
Yeah.
Call Jesse, call Jesse, call Jesse. So that's my
Thank you.
only tip, because I'm telling you, there's just too much information out there. So do you have any inspiring words? Because we have 1 minute.
Yeah. I just like to say, whatever you do in life, and this is my motto, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I try to live my life, is care first and then offer solutions. And one of the favorite things I do in my business is I tell people oftentimes, you're in the best spot possible.
Mhm.
Don't change.
What is it
That's a great
Spider-Man
feeling.
says? Spider-Man's thing
With great
with great responsibility. No, great
power
knowledge, power
power
comes.
comes great responsibility.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's true. And you can be in any field and have a lot of knowledge, and it's your responsibility to share that with others. And that's why I started my podcast, because I feel like there's just
Yeah.
so much people
Yeah.
don't know and need to know. So I
Yep.
appreciate you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And I know that we could talk for hours, but
Yes. Yes, we could.
your information is valuable and people need it. So I appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us
Yeah. I
today.
can't wait to be back talking to you.
Yeah, we got something interesting coming up next time.
I know. Next
All
time.
right. Thank
All
you.
right.
See you later. Have
See
a
ya.
good
Have a
evening.
good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.